I know that many of you are in various points of considering MBA programs, so what I'd like to do is start off by talking about what types of MBA programs are out there in general. And then for those of you who might be a little bit farther along in the process, I want to talk to you about how to put together a strong application. And then, as I said, we'll talk about the Cornell MBA program as well. So typically when you're looking at MBA programs, there are a few different types of programs out there. In North America, the 2-year residential MBA program model is the most common. These programs allow for an internship between your first and second year, which really allows our students to come out of their first year of programming and apply the information that they've learned in a real-world setting. Following that, they'll come back and do a number of elective courses or continue to focus on their area of concentration. 1-year MBA programs in North America are not as common as they are in Europe. We do have a number of 1-year MBA programs across the US, and these residential programs typically start in the spring and run for 3 consecutive semesters. They are great for individuals who are not looking for a radical career shift because you do not have the opportunity for that internship between your first and second year. There are also a number of executive MBA programs in North America, and these are designed to allow individuals to continue working during their MBA program, but have a structured in-class sessions as opposed to online sessions. Executive MBA programs typically have a structured component to their education held on weekends. They are typically targeting individuals with a greater number of years of work experience. So people who have been in managerial roles and are looking to enhance their business acumen or leadership skills. Part-time MBA or online MBA programs are becoming more popular throughout the US because they do allow flexibility so that individuals can continue to work while they're studying. They are often somewhat self-paced but have components that allow students to connect through chat groups, and there are situations where they will have specific classroom time that they're expected to log on, but in other ways it allows a little bit more flexibility for individuals in those programs. MBA programs are meant to provide general business education in addition to the general business courses such as marketing, finance, accounting, business stats, and critical thinking. Most programs allow for a concentration so that students can take a deeper dive into specific areas of interest. Many programs often offer leadership development programming as well. Next slide. So why would you take an MBA? Why would you join an MBA program? There's really 2 main reasons that individuals do consider MBA programs. They are useful for individuals who are looking to make a career switch, as these programs offer a wide range of education and skills. I often have people say that they have a non-traditional background, but the truth is that we value professional diversity within MBA programs. And as if you are looking to switch from a non-business background to a business sector position, you really can't have a better opportunity as you do through an MBA program because of the breadth of offerings. Often people are looking merely to expand their career opportunities within their industry or job function. For career switchers, a traditional 2-year MBA is best, but for career advancers, a 1-year program or an executive program is also possible. Any program that does not allow for an internship should be avoided if you are considering a significant job shift. Next slide. So for those of you who are looking now more aggressively to apply for an MBA program, I want to go over some tips on how to best approach the application process. So this is just an example of a typical application checklist. Some of the things that you will need to have ready to go or be working on as you go through your application process. And many of these, I think, are very similar to what you need for your Fulbright scholarship. So you might have some of these things already. We want to see a resume. Understanding the depth of your work experience is very important for an MBA program. That depth of work experience and initiative and leadership experience that you might have can also be captured in your letters of recommendation. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about what we'd like to see in terms of those. We would like to see transcripts from all post-secondary coursework and degrees, and also your standardized tests. Now, most universities, MBA programs in the US now are accepting both the GMAT or the GRE scores. So when you're applying, take a look at all of the schools that you're interested in applying for. Make sure that you have the option of doing either a GMAT or a GRE and plan accordingly. If all of the schools that you're interested in do accept both, then I'm going to go through some tips on how to figure out what to take. English language exams are required typically for anyone whose native language is not English, but there are very specific requirements based on schools. So again, go onto your school's websites and take a look at what they require and what the steps potentially for an exam waiver are. We also have essays, and usually most schools have at least one, but as many as 3 essays. And we'll talk about how to best approach those essays as well. We want to know your extracurricular activities. That just kind of gives us a way of looking at you more holistically. And also, many of the schools that you will apply to will require an interview for admission. So I want to dive a little bit more deeply into each of these areas. So when you are submitting your resume, there's a couple of things that are really important to keep in mind. First of all, for business school applications, we would like to see a 1-page resume. If you are coming from science research background, you probably have a fairly long resume. It's really important to pare that down and realize that you have very valuable real estate on that 1 page. So avoid any unnecessary information. We often get resumes where the objective is at the top, and of course for business school your objective is to get into an MBA program. We already know that, so really do not waste any space articulating that again. Again, this is very valuable real estate. What we would like to see is evidence of quantifiable impact in your career. So please don't give us a list of your responsibilities. We read a lot of applications, so if you are an accountant or a nurse or a fashion designer, we have a pretty good understanding of what each of your responsibilities are. What we really want to know in your resume is what kind of impact you've had, and quantify it if at all possible. If, for instance, you were able to complete a project ahead of time, therefore increasing revenue by 10%, that's the kind of quantifiable impact that we would like to see on your resume. Avoid jargon. There are some occupations that are much worse at this. Technology, engineering, there's often a lot of jargon, a lot of acronyms. Don't expect that we will understand all of those, so make sure that you use language that will be understood, and if you do have acronyms, spell out those titles, and then you can bracket your acronyms and then use those farther on in your resume. Next slide. So essays are another big piece of the MBA application, and we take great pride in our essays. And when you look at the types of questions that are asked by each of the schools, you really can get a sense of the culture and community at those institutions. Often the questions asked will really specifically mirror that culture. So we take our essays very seriously. When you're filling out those essays, be really careful to answer the questions that are asked. If you are not sure if you've hit the nail on the head, one thing I like to suggest is take your essay, but don't show it to somebody, but do not show them the question, and see if they can understand the question based on your answer. If there is an optional essay, please realize that it is just that. It's optional. It is a place for you to be able to give further information about something that might not be apparent from your application. So if there's a gap in your resume, you can use it for that. If you had a particularly troublesome academic experience because of an external situation, let us know what that is, so that we can understand maybe why you struggled a little bit while you were studying. But that helps put some color onto your situation. Do not recycle essays from another school. We will absolutely know, especially within the North American business schools. It's a fairly tight little community, and we know everybody else's essays, and we do study up on them before we start our application cycle. So if you recycle an essay and just change the name, we're going to know. So please do answer the essays that are presented. Letters of recommendation. Again, this is very different from school to school in terms of how many recommendations we ask for. Some schools ask for only one, some for two. Rarely it is more than that. What we're looking for in those letters of recommendation is for information that will support the information that you've provided in your resume. So ideally, the person who should be writing your letter of recommendation is a direct supervisor, first of all, and a current direct supervisor. We understand that you cannot always tell your direct supervisor, potentially you haven't disclosed your intent of joining an MBA program, and if that is the case, then it's okay to use a previous supervisor or an indirect supervisor, but somebody who has had a chance to really see you at work. That is what we're looking for. Somebody that can highlight your impact in your career, your team skills, your leadership skills, and maybe give some information about your communication style. So all of these things are things that we're looking for from those letters of recommendation. So ideally, it should be a supervisor. If it is impossible to get a supervisor, then it is, if you were maybe self-employed or in a family business, then feel free to use a client or vendor. Transcripts, what we're looking for here is obviously just to get a sense of your academic horsepower, how you performed in your undergraduate degree or your graduate work can help us understand how you will present in a very quantitative heavy MBA program. If your degree was non-traditional or it had few quantitative classes, we're going to take a look at that. We're going to see how you performed in any quantitative classes that you did have. If those are lacking, then we are going to want to see maybe a little bit more robust quantitative score in your standardized test, which I'll talk about in a second. But also there are opportunities for you maybe to take some additional coursework, and feel free to send in that information, and that will help us see how you will do in those quantitative courses. Standardized tests, as I said before, some schools allow you to take the GMAT or the GRE. So how do you decide which one to take? If you can take either one, what I would highly suggest is you do a practice GMAT and a practice GRE test, and whatever you score higher in, focus on that. That is going to give you the most opportunity for success. I do have people ask me, is it okay to take it multiple times? Absolutely. We typically see 2 to 3 test takes. And often it takes that third time before people will actually get their best score. After 3 tests, you tend to plateau. So if you are taking it 4, 5, 6 times, then we're not likely to see a great deal of movement in that test. So I would say 2 to 3 times is fairly typical. But if you have any questions about how many times to take that test, you can also reach out to the schools that you're applying to and see if they have a preference. And they will give you feedback on that. Do you need a TOEFL? This is something that I do ask that you check each of the websites for at the schools that you're applying for. Every school has slightly different policies, but if you are in a country where English is not an official language and you are educated in that country, then likely you will need to take a TOEFL test. If you have other circumstances, potentially you were educated outside of the country, do request a waiver, and we will let you know if you have been approved for a waiver. Now, interviews are, again, something that are vary dramatically from program to program, but often for residential programs, you will need to have an interview for admission. So if you are invited to have an interview, some of the things that you can do to prepare is reread your application. Think about the things that you said in your application. Potentially you're going to see things, well, that you say to yourself, maybe I can expand on that. Maybe I can add a better example here. So as you reread your application, try and think about some of the additional points that you can make that support your application. Make sure that you check out the blogs. There are tons of blogs out there that go through typical questions that you will get from all MBA programs, and then you can actually see questions that are typically asked in each of the schools that you're applying to. So go and read those questions and start preparing examples for each of the questions that you are expecting to get. But always make sure that you cover your bases, because sometimes we like to throw in additional questions and just keep you on your toes. So do come prepared. If you are doing a phone interview, Skype interview, alumni interview, or in person, make sure that you are on time for your interview. So leave a buffer so that you can be there ahead of time to sort of get yourself composed and relaxed, and then jump into your interview. You could have a admissions staff member doing your interview. You could have a current student or an alumni interviewer, and that depends again on the program that you're applying to in the school. So check out those websites. If you are doing an in-person interview, meaning you're coming to our campuses to sit face-to-face with a staff member or student for an interview, use that time wisely. Make sure that you also take advantage of any class visits or information sessions that are offered. We also do, most schools also do offer Skype or telephone interviews if you can't make it all the way to the US. We also have an option, some schools have an option to do interviews with admissions staff or alumni in your city. So again, take a look at those websites and see what those offerings are. So now I want to talk a little bit about the Cornell MBA specifically. So next slide, thank you. At Cornell, at Johnson, we have 2 residential programs. We have a 2-year and a 1-year residential program that I'm going to talk about. We also have a campus in New York City, and we have a Cornell Tech MBA that is specifically focused on entrepreneurship for people with a technology background. We have 2 executive MBA programs, I'm sorry, 3 executive MBA programs, and we also have a dual degree program between Cornell and Tsinghua University in China. I'm going to mostly focus on the 1- and 2-year residential classes. So next slide, please. So just to give you sort of a brief overview of our class profiles, our 2-year program is larger. We typically have between 275 and 280 students. In our 1-year program, it is smaller, usually about 70 students. There's just some basic information about our average GMATs and GPAs. Keep in mind that these are averages for the incoming classes, and we do take a range. So, you know, I've also showed here the middle range for our GMAT score. So if you don't have a 700 GMAT, that's okay. Take a look at our range, because we do bring people in with a wide range of scores. And we're obviously looking at more than just scores. So if you've got something about you that is compelling and intriguing, then a lower score is not necessarily a deal breaker. Likewise, the years of experience, work experience, those are guidelines. Those are averages, and we see people with greater years of work experience and less. So don't let that scare you off. And do let us know if you have any questions about our specific class profile. We are here to answer any questions, so feel free to give our office a call at any time. Next slide. So one of the things that is really different about our particular programs is we have what we call immersion learning. Now, most MBA programs have the ability to concentrate in a specific area. Our immersion learning programs allow for an immersive concentration. In other words, it gives you a chance to have an intense hands-on experience that integrates with the coursework. We have an entire department whose job is solely to find projects for our students, and those projects are problems that companies are working with currently. So you might have an opportunity, if you are interested in an immersion in marketing, to work with a company on a marketing and branding problem that they're dealing with right then and there. So it allows you to apply the information that you're learning, as well as potentially getting in front of the very employers that you want to work for. The programs are coached by business practitioners, and they are under actual business conditions. This is just a list of our different immersions. So we have a variety of different immersions from marketing, operations, finance. We have digital technology, investment banking, sustainable global enterprise, which looks at nonprofit and sustainable business. And then we also have an option to customize your immersion program that allows students to take courses from schools outside of our business school. Next slide. A couple of new additions that we now have include our New York City electives. I had mentioned before that we have a campus in New York City where our Tech MBA students do their classes, and in order to offer our residential students in Ithaca an opportunity to utilize those resources, we've created a number of elective courses that are offered on the weekends during the fall semester. They are offered on Fridays and Saturdays, so you don't have any class in your residential MBA program here in Ithaca, so it allows you to go down to the city and take these courses on Fridays and Saturdays. Those elective topics include design thinking, designing data products, digital leadership, cryptocurrency, and cloud computing. And you can take 2 classes on a single weekend elective. So that is one of the new offerings that we have. Next slide. Another new offering we have is 2 7-week intensives that are offered in New York City. The Fintech Immersion allows students to have an immersive experience in the fintech sector. It exposes students to startup ideas, ventures, technology, and financial services. It is offered in the spring semester of your 2nd year, and there are 4 required courses over a 7-week period, courses in blockchain, cryptocurrency, business models, fintech, and then you have this field group project afterwards. So it allows you to, once again, apply that information that you're learning in the class. The other intensive that is offered, next slide, is the Digital Marketing Intensive. This intensive immerses students in the intersection of brand strategy, creativity, and big data analytics. Also offered in the spring semester of 2nd year. There are 3 required courses over the 7 weeks in digital marketing platforms, strategy creation, measurement, digital marketing analytics, and again, that field project. And next slide, please. One of the other things that is really a key component of our 2 residential programs is the leadership programs. We believe strongly in leadership development as a pivotal point in an MBA experience. We have a number of different opportunities to grow as a leader. We have the Johnson Outdoor Experience, which allows our students to do a number of team building projects in a really beautiful setting just outside of Ithaca. We have the Leading Teams Practicum, which is offered in the core curriculum. We have 3 leadership expeditions. One to Patagonia, which allows you to really test yourself over a 10-day trip through Patagonia. We have a boot camp at Quantico, and we have a canoe trip through the Adirondacks. So all of these things are meant to sort of test you physically and mentally and build those leadership skills. Also, the Board Fellows, which is a way for our students to work as non-voting members on the board of local nonprofits to help them with projects. And our Leadership Fellows and Park Fellows opportunities allow our students to give back within the community. Just quickly, our career development information. I just really wanted to highlight the impact of our unique curriculum here at Johnson. 93% of our students receive full-time job offers within 3 months of graduation, and you can see the average base salary that they are graduating with. We are really proud of the return on investment at Johnson, and we have 13 dedicated staff in our Career Development Center that are happy to work with all of our current students. So that was a lot of information that I've covered in a short time, but I would like to say thank you. If you've noticed, my email address is also up here, so if you want to take that down and you have specific questions, do feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy to answer any questions.